You want to run a better D&D game? Then stop copying how people act at various tables and start paying attention to how stories actually work. Everyone's watching Critical Role and they're nodding, like they're learning something. And yeah, it's good, maybe even great. They've got a talented cast, they've got beautiful moments, incredible improv. But let's be real, that's a professional performance with trained actors on camera with a huge budget. And yes, they're very much in it for the money. They pull in six figures to millions a year. Your table probably doesn't have the same lighting budget, and they definitely don't have a warm-up coach. Trying to mimic that won't teach you how to run a good game. It won't even teach you how to run a mediocre one. It will teach you how to chase moments that only work because they're being watched. Because the people at the table, they know how to hit a cue, shape a scene, drive emotion. That's their job description. But if you want to build something that breathes, that pulls your players in and stays with them, don't rely on their table. Let me put it in another way. I used to be a professional race car driver, briefly. And no, I didn't make any money, but I still watched Formula One, and I do knowing full well it will never make me a better driver. Plus, I'll never have a car that generates 3,500 pounds of downforce, or a budget to even get in one. So my point is, go ahead, watch Critical Role, enjoy it. But if you want to run games better, watch great stories and learn how to dissect them. And yeah, I'm sorry to everyone who guessed wrong, but thank you for guessing about what animation series we're going to cover. Sad face. Except for
Gendor 5199.
You were correct. We are going to start with Avatar: The Last Airbender, because Avatar did something most campaigns never even try. Well, first, they didn't even begin with a villain. They didn't start with a tavern on Meetup. It started with a break, a fracture in the world's soul left behind and unresolved. And that wound, it never healed. It just festered and it grew, and it pulled on spirits and politics and families and everything. And every choice suddenly mattered. Every place was loaded before those characters even arrived. There wasn't any quests in the entire series. Sure, there were goals, but those only existed because there was pressure. And that's the difference. We got a villain who didn't monologue, he waited. We got a party that didn't belong together, but they had no choice. And the characters, they weren't made of bullet points, they were built with grief, loyalty, history, regret, legacy, stuff that doesn't fit on a character sheet. Now, if you're new here, welcome to FluffyDemonDnD. This is episode 9 of my 20-part campaign mastery series on how to build better campaigns. And in this video, I'm going to show you how Avatar: The Last Airbender and 2 episodes of Legend of Korra accidentally followed the exact campaign design system I teach. Or maybe they didn't. Or maybe they did, and I'm secretly just a genius. Either way, it's all here. The world wound, the character weaves, the slow burn, the present weave, and those invisible threads tying it all together in their overlap. There's no 300-page campaign setting, and there's no $60 hardcover, and there's no pre-made module with a DM's Guild Gold bestseller ribbon. There's just gravity and there's just pressure, and there's a hell of a lot of consequences. Oh, and if for the martial arts nerds out there, yes, the bending styles in Avatar: The Last Airbender are real. Airbending is based off of Bagua. Firebending is Northern Xiaolin. Waterbending is Daichi. Earthbending is Hongar. I practice Hochuan, which is Monkey Fist. And Chinchir Tai Chi, which is Chin style Tai Chi. So yeah, I geek out hard on this, but this isn't trivia night. This is about world building that holds weight for tabletop role-playing games. And before we go any further, I need to get out a quick disclaimer. This video is not sponsored or affiliated with Nickelodeon, Avatar: The Last Airbender, or The Legend of Korra. All rights belong to the original creators. We're just borrowing one of the best animated stories ever made to show and educate dungeon masters and game masters how to tell stories that last. And if you haven't watched it, go fix that. Seriously, it's so good because this isn't just a cartoon. It's a master class in breathing worlds and living wounds. So let's start there. Let's start with the world wound.
Yep.
Section 1, the first fracture, making a world that remembers. Every great campaign world has a scar, and it's not just a theme, and it's not some villain, and it's not a war to reference in lore drops later on. It's a real scar, something that broke the world so badly that it had to twist itself just to keep itself going. It didn't get better, and it doesn't heal. It becomes bent. And that's the world wound. And it's not just a monster pit or some corrupted wasteland. It's where meaning lives, in the silence where the gods used to speak, the empire that clawed its way out of the ashes. It's in laws that punish the powerless and protect the problem. That fear you see in the people's eyes, even when they can't remember what they're scared of. The world wound is not lore, and it's not some just setting detail. It's gravity. It drags the whole world out of shape. It affects the map, the magic, even politics, even faith. And it's the way people see each other. And it's the way they internalize and see themselves. And your players, doesn't matter if they know it, they're in that orbit already. In Avatar, the world wound starts with one mistake. And watch The Legend of Korra, Season 2, Episodes 7 and 8, which is titled Beginnings, Part 1 and 2. 10,000 years ago, people lived on the backs of lion turtles. It was the only way to stay safe from the spirits, the wild, and from others. When someone would leave the safety of the city, the lion turtle would grant them the ability to bend an element, just for a little bit. And when they would come back, they'd give it back. Juan broke that. He lied and stole fire, and used it to take food for himself and others. When they caught him, they cast him out, alone, into the world that was supposed to kill him. But it didn't, even with his firebending. Because instead of treating the spirits like monsters, he started treating them like beings, and over time they became friends. Eventually he finds two spirits, Rava and Batu. They're locked together in a constant struggle. One's light, one's dark. One always pressing down the other. He sees that and thinks he understands it, so he acts. And like most mortals, he mistakes pressure for cruelty. He breaks it. He frees Batu. He thought he was saving someone, but what he was actually doing, he severed balance itself. They were the pressure holding the world together. Separate them, and the world doesn't explode, it unravels. That's the moment. That's the fracture. That's the world wound. Because he caused it, he had to try to put it right. The plan was to travel to every lion turtle and learn every element: fire, water, earth, and air. But even that wasn't enough. In one last-ditch effort, he joined with Rava. Not for the power, but to hold everything together. That's where the Avatar comes from. Not some chosen savior, just a guy made the world bleed, and he spent the rest of his life trying to stop it from tearing itself apart. If you're trying to build a world wound that holds weight, where every story thread bends towards something real, you need to start there. Watch the world wound video. It's linked here. It walks you through exactly how to build a scar your world has to live around. Not something you drop in for flavor. It's not something you explain once and then you forget. It's basically the entire core, a force of everything else that rotates around your story. And when you're ready to actually build something real, start there. And let's go through the 6 questions that define Avatar's world wound. Where did it come from? Well, it's the mercy without understanding. Juan acted on instinct. He didn't understand what he was doing. He meant well, but that doesn't really matter. The cost didn't stop with him. It hit everyone. It wasn't evil. It was basically ignorance. And the world's been bleeding ever since. 2, what does it want? Well, to stay open. Once chaos is out, it doesn't want to go back and be oppressed and have oppression and fight. So it feeds on that separation. Splitting spirits from the body, light from dark, order from wild. 3, what threatens it? Reunion. When Juan has to fuse with Raba, the wound pulls back, balance closes, harmony stitches itself shut. And that weakens it. So it changes. It stops being loud and it starts hiding. What is it connected to? Everything. The spirit wild, the avatar cycle, even the rise of the dark avatar, and the eventual war with the Fire Nation. Every major fracture in the world traces back its origin to that one moment, that one break. So how is it changing? Well, it's evolving. It doesn't look like chaos anymore. It hides in systems, in the peace treaties, in tradition. It teaches people to fear change. It tells them silence is safer than truth. And what happens if it wins or loses? Well, if it wins, the avatar cycle ends. The spirit realm overtakes the mortal world. Not in fire. There's not some great battle soaked in blood. It's in the silence, in the unexplainable stillness, in everything being meaninglessness. If it loses, balance returns. But the scar doesn't go away because the true world wound doesn't heal. It becomes myth and then a cycle. And finally, a warning the world entirely forgets until it happens again and start the process all over. That's how you write a world wound, not with a crater, not with a dramatic twist, a consequence. It's a tear that never stops pulling. And where there's a world wound, there has to be some vacuum. The world won't leave it empty. Something will naturally crawl in and fill it. And that's your villain. And it's not always a monster. Sometimes it's a savior, a tradition, a law. And that's what I call a slow burn. But it always begins in the same place, the crack that formed when the world split. It's a rotten ooze that seeps in. And that something is saying, this is how it's supposed to be. This is where I belong. Let's expand on this and talk about the slow burn. Section 2, the slow burn. A slow burn villain isn't just a person. And granted, it can be, sure. Sometimes it's a tyrant or a dictator, someone with power and the patience to wait everyone else out. But it can also be much, much, much more. It wears the face of a machine or a process, even a belief system, that no one remembers how to challenge it. It even ingrains its fingers into structures, into every crack, and it is virtually invisible. People sadly just start thinking it's just the way things are. These things take on the form as the government, a doctrine, some cultural ideology that pushes everyone who pushes back, even religion and its gods. This is not always having a stat block. Could be an actual belief, something that is pressing down. A rule turns into a ritual, which eventually transforms into law, and that just rots everything and becomes fact. And no one even remembers where it started. The thing that makes it a slow burn isn't what it looks like, it's how it moves. It doesn't shatter the world in a single moment, it whittles, wearing it all down just a little bit at a time, just enough that people stop noticing. And after a while, nobody remembers what it was like before. If you want a real breakdown, a full blueprint on how to do this, you can watch the video here. But here's the short version. Your villain doesn't need a layer. It just needs time. We always talked about how the world wound cracks the setting, how it opens something that never truly heals. This is what moves in afterwards, and this is what grows in that empty space. Looking at the Avatar universe, the villain in The Last Airbender, it's not Ozai. Sure, he's loud and dangerous, and it's definitely not Azula either. Not really. Or even Sozin. It's the Fire Nation. That's the slow burn. It's not a person, it's a system. The Fire Nation didn't roll in with armies right away. They didn't open with war. It started with a story. That's the trick. Season 3, Episode 6, The Avatar and the Fire Lord.
Aang, it's time you learn my history with Fire Lord Sozin. You need to understand how the war began. if you want to know how to end it.
Sozin looked at a peaceful world and saw opportunity, not something to preserve, something to use. He didn't believe in balance, he believed in domination, and then dressed it up like destiny.
I've been thinking hard about the state of the world lately. Destined to be Fire Lord, our nation is enjoying an unprecedented time of peace and wealth. We should share this prosperity with the rest of the world.
Telling himself fire would bring order and progress. And when he got his wish and the fire started to spread, nobody noticed. Well, at least not right away. That's the power of the slow burn. It doesn't have to start with an explosion. It starts with making little edits in the history, in the ways kids are taught, wearing an approved uniform, and thereby teaching a new ideology of what is truly a family. And this is all based on peace, unity, cohesion, and a better life. And by the time people realized the world was burning, it was already in their homes, their schools, their temples. The words that children used changed to support this new thought process. That's its brilliance and its horror. And that's what the Fire Nation became. It's not just country. It's wrapped up in patriotism, ingrained in a belief engine, rooted by fear. And they sold it as pride. It wraps conquest in gold and calls it peace. And it does it so thoroughly that people grew up thinking that this is the only way things could have ever been.
I knew the next avatar would be born an air nomad. So I wiped out the air temples. But somehow the new avatar eluded me.
Zuko's scar isn't just his father's doing, it's the whole system. Azula didn't just snap, she broke under the weight of it. Even Ira, who marched for it, who led armies for it, carries what it turned it into. And even after he walked away, the system didn't stop because Ozai isn't the thing keeping it alive. The Fire Nation doesn't need a ruler or a throne to keep burning because it is fire. And fire needs to consume, gobbling up resources. It is a war machine that has to spread. Quiet at first, but always hungry. And that's what you as the DM need to understand. Your villain doesn't need a speech. It doesn't need a big fight. It just needs a slow burn. Something that sounds almost reasonable. Which your players hear and go, oh, yeah, maybe. Just long enough to let it in. Just long enough that they burn the tips of their fingers. That's the danger. It changes the world by convincing everyone this is normal. And then finally something breaks. And that's where your characters come in. And it's not because they're special. And it's definitely not because they're chosen. But it's because the heat finally got too much. Something had to crack. And that crack, that pressure, that's where they start to matter. And that's where the character weave begins.
Appa, yip yip.
Section 3, the character weave. The world doesn't shape terrain. It shapes people. And that's the part that most game masters and dungeon masters end up missing. They'll tell you all about the maps and the monsters and the wars and the gods, but none of that really matters if the people in the world don't feel like they actually came from the world. You know, the whirlwind breaks the ground beneath everything, and the slow burn is going to grow up through those cracks, and teaching everyone how to survive in its wake. But the character weave, that's where your players actually live. Navigate the weight caused by the whirlwind and the creeping of the slow burn. Because nobody shows up, non-player characters or players, clean. They're already carrying the world inside them. Fear, loss, pride, need, shame. And those aren't stats on a sheet. I mean, this is the real stuff. This is what the character weave is, and it's not your backstory, even though it has to do with it. Or at least not really. But what it really is pressure. And that's what shapes them before they even knew they were going to be a character in the story. Before the dice ever hit the table. If you want to break down, yeah, there's a video on this, and it goes deep. It's about family and culture and pain and purpose and how to build characters who actually belong in the world instead of just floating on top of it or on the side of it, but actually inside of it. That's where you want your characters. The kind of characters that really matter. Well, they really matter to your players. And yeah, again, your character's whole thing, the entire system, it runs on those 6 questions. 6 of them. It's the same 6 questions that you used for the world wound, and it's the same 6 questions that you're going to use for your slow burn. These same questions, they're inside your players also. So let me show you what I mean. And we're going to use Toph as a starting point. She wasn't forged on a battlefield. Her war was smaller, quieter, a lot more elegant. And if you want to call it that.
Trying anything too dangerous? Absolutely not. Very good.
Her world was wrapped in silk, and she was told that she was safe and breakable.
Guards!
Toph, what happened?
I thought I heard someone. I got scared.
You know your father doesn't want you wandering the grounds.
Her parents said that she'd never need to fight, and that she was weak. So weak that she taught herself how to hit harder than anyone else. She refused to be weak on their terms. Every stomp, every smirk, every time she says exactly what nobody wants to hear. That's her weave, echoing. Let's look at Aang. He didn't lose his people in some climatic war. With one small blink, they were gone. Scared, he ran, and in a fit of self-preservation, he froze. But when he returned, everything he knew had turned to ash. And sure, he's got the cool title of Avatar. But that's not his weave. His weave is built on guilt, survivor's guilt.
Why did you disappear?
I didn't mean to.
But also something worse, absence. That feeling that peace might still be possible, but Aang doesn't deserve it to be the one to bring it. Sokka. He can't bend. He's really not a great fighter. He doesn't have any real special abilities.
3 on 3.
Actually, Toph, there's 4 of us.
Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't count you. No bending and all.
And he's constantly the one that gets left behind. And he's done with that. So he builds, he plans, he's doing whatever he can to keep the people around him alive with duct tape and stubbornness. The fight in him is not because he thinks he's going to win. It's because someone has to. Sokka's weave is absence too. But it's a different kind. It's a weave of watching the people he loves leave. And the drive to still show up the next day with a bad joke and a few ideas. And when we look at Katara, hers is love. Yeah, but it's also love that's been twisted by loss. In the show, she wears a lot of hats, from the camp mom to healer, but she also wants revenge. Those two things don't really stack well together. She tries to be kind, gentle, loving, until it hurts so much. And like a dam, she bursts. Her heart didn't grow in some peaceful garden. It was frozen the day her mother died.
You hurt your mother. Get out of here!
Mom, I'm scared.
Go find your dad, sweetie. I'll handle this.
And everything since then has been her trying to keep herself from breaking apart completely. Her weave is based on this turmoil of loss and love. And all of them, Toph, Aang, Sokka, Katara, they're already moving. They're already pulled in different directions. The wound is dragging them one way. The slow burn is pressing from the other side. But they haven't even hit the story yet. Not really. They haven't hit each other, because before the campaign starts, something needs to snap. And whatever that is, that's where the prologue lives. Again, a prologue is not a tutorial about mechanics or hand-holding, just to show them how initiative works. It's about giving them one moment, just one, where they see the world through their character's eyes for the first time. And this is before anyone else gets to show up. The story of how Sokka and Katara end up in the fishing boat. Aang's frantic escape from the air temple. Katara's choice as she watches her mother killed. Or maybe it's even Toph's first time stepping into the ring to become the blind bandit. The prologue is there to challenge the players and challenge the world you built. Do you need it? Yes, you do. Because it gives you the ability to give your players a voice without the distraction of the other personalities. I go really deep. I have a 2-part video about how to make a prologue and why you really need one. You can watch them here. And the prologue solidifies whose your character is and how the world works. But the idea of the world wound, the slow burn, the character weave, even the prologue is kind of stagnant without making it something tangible. And for that, we need a present weave.
Yep, yep.
Section 4, the present weave. All right, so here's the thing. Nobody tells you when you start running a game, your world isn't alive because of what happened 1,000 years ago. It's alive because of what's happening right now. Like, literally, right now. The second the players step into a place and feel something pressing back. And that's what we call the present weave. The physical place is the non-player characters, the living world, where the events are taking place right now. It doesn't need to be flashy. It doesn't even need to be explained yet. But it needs to feel like it belongs. And then it's tied to everything else you've built. The best way to think of this is like this. Your world wound, that's the reason things are broken. Your slow burn, that's the things that's making everything worse. Your character weave, they're already caught up in their own little dramas. But the present weave, that's the mess they're standing in right now. Each thing of importance, a place, a dungeon, event, a non-player characters, events, things that have life of their own, they exist with or without your players. Think of London. It was here 200 years ago. And guess what? It's still going to be here 200 years from now. To build these, we apply the 6 questions to each of these different things. And if you want to see how to make your places matter, go check out this video here. Remember, this is where you play. This is where the world is moving. Underneath your feet. And without it, you're just playing in the world's history. And speaking of history, in places that matter in the show Avatar, here are 3 weaves to hopefully explain how this works in the show. Every single episode is a present weave. And I could have done any of them, but here are 3 to try and make it make sense. Wan Shi Tong's library. The party visits this massive ancient library buried in the desert. It's breathtaking. It's still. And it doesn't want them there. Not because it's evil, but because the library knows they're going to mess it up. The players can feel that. The moment they start flipping through scrolls with a mission in mind, they stop being students. And they become thieves. And now every word they read feels like they're making a deal they didn't understand. That's the present weave working. They didn't need a warning sign. They can feel the pressure without a word. The rumbling of their plans sinking. Next, let's look at the Earth rumbling ring. Okay, now jump to the other end of the tone spectrum. Giant underground earth-bending matches, fireworks, screaming fans, people throwing rocks for money and fame. On the surface, it's fun. But you realize relatively fast that the whole thing is hollow. Kind of like professional wrestling. Don't yell at me about professional wrestling. Fun, fake entertainment. These aren't warriors, they're performers. The ring is turned bending into a spectacle, and the crowd is cheering for something they used to think was sacred. So yeah, the players might love it at first. But the longer they sit there, the more they realize the place is slowly eating something important. That's the present weave. They are there to find a teacher, unintentionally become part of the show. And finally, let's do Ira, the most important non-player character of the series. When the actor who played him died, The show struggled to finish book 3 because all the other actors were so upset. Because even though he's not a place or an event like Sozin's Comet, he is just a man pouring tea with an epic past. And somehow that's more powerful than half the armies in the show, because when he's around, things slow down. Characters say what they really mean, and people get second chances. He doesn't need to move the plot. He is the weight in the room. He's everything the Fire Nation could have been. Every conversation with him is a chance to stop the cycle. That's what makes him a present weave. He's a person who matters, not because he's loud, but because everything else starts to quiet down when he speaks. You don't need to build 1,000 locations or NPCs, or even random encounter tables, events, and so on. You just need a few of these, a few places or people or choices that pushes back when the players arrive. Then when you need to further the narrative, weave a new present weave, but do it with weight. Also remember, these things need to be tied to the world wound, the slow burn, and the characters' personal arcs, because everything needs to tie back to something, because this makes them feel deeply, intimately real. And when they do tie to something, you're able to carry your entire session without trying, because people don't remember exposition, they remember pressure. And that's what your present weave is. It's not just a thing in the world. It's the moment the story walks right up to the players and asks, what kind of person are you? Really? And once you've got that, now we can talk about what happens when these weaves start to pull on each other. And we get to talk about the fun part, overlap.
Yep.
Section 5, overlap. So here's the thing. You've got all these weaves pulling in different directions. The world wound's causing pain. The villain slow burn is causing pressure. The character weave is putting pressure on your character's personal stuff, while the places they're standing in right now are your present weave. They're all moving constantly. Things are happening even when the characters are not around. But every once in a while, 2 of those threads slam together, or 3, sometimes even all 4. And the game changes. And that's what I mean when I say overlap. It's just real pressure. Just parts of the world suddenly hit at once and nobody can walk away the same. Let me show you how. The death of Tway, which is this episode, is about the death of the moon spirit. And this is where everything tightens on all 4 weaves. This is the accumulation of many threads finally yanking tight. General Zhao, doesn't just take a life. He cuts balance out of the sky. The moon's not just a symbol. It's the reason the tides move, why water building even exists. It holds everything together. Yin yang. Yin yang. And he kills it. The world wound was already there long before this. It started when Rava and Batu were torn apart. That's when balance broke. But this moment, this is when the world remembers. It's still bleeding. And that wound, and Zhao, he isn't just trying to conquer the North Pole. He's trying to rewrite what's allowed. That's the slow burn on overdrive, showing what it really wants, power without rules. The present weave, that whole episode is the fight to keep things balanced. When the character weave snaps, let's look at Sokka loses Yue, who becomes the moon. It hits harder than any blow. And throughout the show, you see it later on. Every time he hesitates around Suki. Every time he smiles a little quieter than before. Aang loses control. That rage, that grief, it takes him somewhere else. The Avatar state isn't just pure power. It's also pain. And this is one of the few times he doesn't hold back. Zuko watches all of this and just for a split second, he steps off the path he's on. Not because someone stopped him, because he saw the cost. Really, really saw it. This isn't a big boss fight. It's the kind of moment that stays under the skin. It's the kind that gets mentioned 12 episodes later in different season in a sentence, in a look, in a hesitation. That's overlap. It's not about everything happening at once. It's about the world pushing in from different angles and someone breaking or changing or carrying something new that they didn't ask for. So what does overlap actually do? It pushes things forward, and that's it. Not because you said this is the plot now, but because something's happened that leaves a mark. And once something leaves a mark, the next things are already different. It's like you hit a nerve. And once that happens, it doesn't matter if the city's falling or someone's flinching during a conversation, the pressure's already in the air. And you can feel it. A place changes because someone bled there. A person changes because they watched something burn and couldn't stop it. And now every time they're back in that same kind of situation, even if it's totally different, that pressure's still there. It's in their heads. It's pulling on something. Villains don't need to win for this to work. You just need to leave a dent. Something that doesn't fade out when the music stops. You know it's working when the players start making weird little decisions later that they can't really fully explain. They don't say it's because of something 10 sessions ago, but they'll see in the way they approach a new town or how they talk to someone who reminds them of that, that one guy, or how they won't step foot near that cave, even though there's probably something valuable inside. Overlap's not a mechanic. It's not a theme. It's just pressure from different places, and they're all hitting at once. Sometimes it's two threads pulling opposite ways, or maybe three wrapping around the same moment. And it could be everything slamming together, and no one's ready for it. You don't need to script that. Build the weaves tight enough that eventually they touch. And when they do, something shifts. That's it. That's your overlap. So the last part is why this matters. Because you feel it now, right? Well, at least I hope so. This whole thing isn't just about building some plot. It's about building tension that's never really let go. The whirlwind cracked the world wide open. The slow burn crept in and started filling that space. That's something worse. The characters, they carry that weight even if they don't know it yet. And your present weaves, that's where it lands. That's where you feel it, where the story actually happens. And none of this works on its own. But when you start pulling on each other, then something breaks and you watch the pressure spill into everything else. That's when it clicks. That's when your players stop waiting to be told the story and they start chasing it down. But yeah, I get it. It's a lot. It's a lot. Because you're not just talking about one or two ideas. You're talking about dozens of threads. Remember, each character has 6 questions dangling behind them. Your slow burn also has 6. Your whirlwind, another 6. Cities, temples, creatures, 6. It stacks up fast, and that's where the next video comes in. I'm going to show you how to handle it. How to keep your choices clean and track that pressure without drowning in it. And hopefully run a messy living campaign without turning it into a checklist. And you don't need a filing cabinet. You need circles that matter. Because when you do it right, the story writes itself. You just need to hold on. And sometimes for dear life. And if this sounds like your kind of game, then come join the Warren below, where stories run deep and every thread leads somewhere dangerous. Where Sokka's strategy, Katara's heart, Aang's hope, Toph's defiance, and even Zuko's guilt all have a place. Because they're all Fluffy spawn now, and the Warren below is wide open.